All right, everybody, I'm super excited. We're at the interview portion of our show. I'd like to introduce somebody that's become an amazingly close friend and honestly the best collaboration personally I've had in dentistry since I've been in dentistry about 40 years. Jed Archibald. I think I got so many fun names for him. I call him the Prime Professor. I call him the Warlock because the guy reminds me of one of the Die Hard movies. Let's see, what else? Other fun names do I have for him? The Digital MacGyver. And then I think we're going to do a Western. Many of you know I do Westerns. He's going to be Jed Cassidy, and I'll be the Sundance Ed. And we'll find something for you guys to do in the movie because I actually wrote a script for that. Started anyway. But anyway, Jed he's the most talented person that I've met, certainly in the lab space, both with his hand skills, but with his basic digital understanding. In fact, I think he could hack NORAD if we needed him to tonight. So I've asked him to come on, and as you've seen the flow of this program, 1 month we're doing somebody from the lab space and 1 month from the dentist space. And so I wanted to bring Jed on. And my collaboration with him, he's really the guy that got me to trust digital. I've been using obviously zirconia copings for a long time, but I've not been happy with what I saw in the printing space. I wasn't all that happy with what I was seeing in the machining space. And literally, he is probably the most knowledgeable, the best person that you could go to about 3D printing on Earth. And don't mean to pull out one skill set, but in the 20 or 30 minutes, we kind of want to focus on that to the point that actually in the beginning, when I started working with him 2 or 3 years ago, him and I had several discussions about resins, improvements in resins that we'd like to see. I wanted to see something, and he did too, with more stone-like reflection. He did this fake reflection of that I saw in the printable resins for our model work. Also, the little lines you would see, the resolution. And really, Jed's taken it upon himself to work with several manufacturers of printers that he is now getting me prints that have resolution of 25 microns in the X, Y, and Z plane. And that was really all his doing. We were working with a couple of companies to help develop a couple of resins for us. They completely dropped the ball. And Jed picked it up and really with his own dime and his own money and his own time, I've given my 2 cents worth, what I would like to see, but he's going to share a little bit on that for a resin he's developed that I really believe everybody should be using. It is the best thing by far that I have seen on the market to date, and everybody that I've got to try it, I get nothing from it. I'm not taking any royalties or anything like that. Thankfully, Jed was kind enough to let me give input on what I'd like to see in a resin. And so, Jed, let me take the ball from there. Sorry about the long introduction, but it's just been fabulous. And just tell us a little bit about, I know you worked with Gordon Christensen for 20 or 30 years. Your dad's pretty famous in the space. Tell me a little bit about what you're doing today, what really got you interested in dental technology, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, so I mean, basically, I was just very fortunate to essentially grow up in the lab industry, not just grow up in the industry, but grow up among 2 giants, my father and Gordon, 2 crazy guys, both completely different, but both very passionate about dentistry, right? And so at the age of 15, I essentially started my apprenticeship in the laboratory business and went all the way from there, and then started teaching in the school and started getting more involved with CRA and a lot of the projects we were doing. And back then, everything was still being done essentially by Gordon and my father, evaluating, testing, and trying to improve most of the products going through the magazine. Now it's known as CR, and REL has taken over it, and essentially they're leaning a lot more on the users and the subscribers of the magazine to actually give feedback on products. So it's a little less hands-on, a little different philosophy, both very good. But again, like I said, I mean, I think anyone else growing up in my situation probably would be a lot better at dentistry than I am.
Oh, come on.
So it's one of those crazy things that, I was very fortunate. I tried to do my best with it. And I think that's a lot of my passion in giving back, because I feel like I really have been put in this position to actually give back as much knowledge has been given me. So that's very hard. And, going back to essentially digital technology, when digital technology hit, our industry and started to hit very hard, we know from our eyes, the discerning eyes, it was not very exciting, right? If anything, it was discouraging. The only good thing is it was introducing a bar that people had to, if they couldn't pass this bar, then they better get out of the industry, right? It was a low bar, but at least it was a bar, right? That kind of weeded out a lot of the riffraff. But again, I think when a lot of us looked at it, a lot of us didn't want to embrace digital technology because we were looking at the magazines, we were looking at the lectures being done, and we were just thinking, man, this is not impressive. This is garbage. And I think I had a natural curiosity as to what would happen if you had good technicians use technology, right? What if happened if you had artists use technology? So it's not even about what I do with the technology, right? Because I don't consider myself to be the best technician or the best artist. I want to see good artists use good technology. I want to see what they would do. And I think it would be absolutely fantastic and inspiring. And that's where I think my relationship with you, Doc, has been really cool. Is you are a fantastic artist, you're a fantastic educator, you're a fantastic everything, right? But essentially,
no,
I'm able to feed you digital technology, right? And we're able to push it and see how far we can take it, so we can actually try to get that message out to the world and show them, hey, if you have the best people using the best technology, the best way we know how, here's the results you're going to get. And some people are going to say, yeah, that's worth it to me. Other people are not going to see the difference. But we're able to at least give people this picture and show them, hey, maybe technology is ready for you. And it is time to move forward. So, in a short, that's kind of been my mission. The past 10 years really has been focused a lot on digital, even though I'm still an analog technician. I've been an analog technician longer than I have been a digital, but I'm known for digital stuff, right? And who knows, maybe we'll be known for AI and robots here pretty soon, right?
Or we'll be replaced by them.
Yeah. So,
well, let me just expand on that point. And I got several questions, and we got the other guys have some questions too. And that speaks to a point up till 2 years ago, related to my relationship with Jed. I did not make a digital impression because I didn't like the output. I touched on this in the introduction. Since the last 2 years, I have not made a physical impression. Jed's output in his understanding and the partnership, and that was a challenge for me. I was the type that had to do everything myself. I just didn't trust anybody. Now I completely trust Jed, and this speaks to our level of communication. The digital partner, he is more important to me than anybody else on my team. Okay, yes, whoever I send the perio to, great, they do a great job at endo. But the finished result ultimately comes down to mine and his input, and I let him guide that. I really let him guide how I'm going to treat a case and send it to him, so he can give me where I can pick up and do my little tweaks and stuff like that. So Jed, what I'd like to ask you relative to what I just said there is, what would you say to, let's say, somebody that's been dabbling, which a lot of dentists have been dabbling. I know technicians are deeper into it. What should they have today, and what should they look in the near future should they be looking at to be able to create the kind of work we're doing together, let's say?
Yeah, so I think the most important thing is that dentists, they need to make sure they go at their own pace, that they don't feel like they need to keep up with other dentists or keep up with technology. I think it's really important that dentists make sure that they keep their overhead low. They're coming out of school with just ridiculous debt. They're buying an office or buying into an office, and that's doubling their debt out of the bat. They're married, and their wife thinks they married a doctor, and they're making a doctor's salary, and they won't for a very long time. So I think it's really important that they just go at their own pace. PBS is fantastic, and it's affordable, right? But when you do have the funds, and when you do have the function to be able to actually bring in some stuff, a scanner's fantastic. There's some really affordable scanners out there. And from what you have shown, and I'm sure you've talked about a lot, is really as you increase the price of a scanner, you're really just increasing the speed. That's not necessarily increasing the accuracy, right? So you can get into a very budget-friendly scanner these days and get very high-quality scans. That's not a price point. And then the other thing I would bring in would be a printer. And then the very last thing I would bring in a mill. Because most likely if you're going to bring in a mill, a Seric machine, for instance, you're going to be using it for your insurance type crowns, your single posteriors. And if you start doing the ROI on your insurance crowns, how long it'll take to pay off that mill, it'll be a very long time. It'll be a very long time. So that's the very last piece of equipment I would bring in. You know, the scanner and the printers are going to be very budget friendly, and you're going to be able to kind of dabble in technology without being completely married to a new machine and a new business plan. Right. So those are the two things I would look at. I wouldn't say you have to have them, because you don't. There's lots of people around who can help you. You know, outsourcing is fantastic. It's a great tool to have as well.
So basically what you're saying, the first tool to get, because what I hear you say is as soon as you can afford it, is a digital scanner, okay, intraoral scanner. And then looking even before that, find a good digital partner. Then that's the first investment you should make. And then don't even think about a mill in your office until your practice is going and all of that stuff. That's what, just to summarize, right? Okay. Richard, you had a question there, right?
So Jed, on the technology side of things, I just happened to see it today and it brought it to my attention. Orascan 2.0, and they're really pushing the idea that this stuff changes so fast technologically, etc., software. So you pay them $565 a month for lease of your scanner and software, and you're now supported forever. But if you took that number over 3 years, you know, you're going to buy, 500, times that out. Do you think there's efficacy of those kinds of concepts when it comes to scanning technology specifically? Because their idea is that, like everything obsolesces so quickly, in 2 to 3 years, your scanner's obsolete. So, and what do we do with these scanners we've spent, $18,000 for or $15,000 for, when all of a sudden 3 years later, there's a new one. Now you've got this old one, versus leasing a system where you can continually upgrade it.
Yeah, I think that's a tricky one, and it's a very important question. So with scanners, a company like that, they're trying to put the emphasis on getting new pieces of equipment in people's hands. To be a reseller is actually very difficult financially. You look at how many dentists there are out there, how many scanners you're going to sell, how many machines you're going to sell. You're going to sell not that many compared to how much service responsibilities you're going to have. So I can see why they would want to push models like that, and I do think that's a valid model. But I think more so than having the most up-to-date scanner is having a good service partner. Because pretty much the last thing you want is a really sweet, hot scanner and no one to call when it's having a glitch. That's where essentially we know our good friend Armin at Cadre, he's just been absolutely crushing it. He's been taking business from just about every reseller out there, because he picks up the phone, his team picks up the phone when you call. And it doesn't matter exactly what they're selling you. That's more important than anything. So the technology is good, and yeah, there is a time to lease, there is a time to buy. But I would focus on who you're buying it from far more than the piece of equipment or the technology inside.
Okay. And so let me just, summarize what you said, or maybe add to it. And I think we've all been through that experience in life. Various things we buy, like cameras or any kind of dental toy or any personal toy. If you're an expert at, like you, okay, Jed, you could buy something off of a rack from Frozen or any printer company, and even though there's no software for it, create it, make it work. The average person can't. So the most important thing, especially when you're getting into a technology, is to look for a company that gives you the proper training and service. Like a Cadre, not to sell Armin's company, and you're going to pay a little extra for that. Or for the photography space, like Photomed. If you know everything about photography, like Dr. Ortiz here, you could buy from any online place and put the pieces together. But when you don't know how the pieces integrate and then how to apply it, then you got to go with a partner. And that's why this is the same relationship I have with Jed. I know digital, okay. In my brain, I understand the concept, but like today, I'm trying to mill something and it's like my computer's frozen. I'm sitting there for 10 minutes pulling my hair out. I get the digital MacGyver on the phone. He's playing in my brain and a computer, and I'm watching it. All of a sudden, it's milling fine, and that's just from an expert to be able to do that. So it's the same thing exactly, Jed. So sorry for the long-winded addition to what you were saying.
No,
I got to check out.
Oh, I think that's perfect. I think. Okay.
Yeah. All right, buddy. We'll see you later. We're going sign off.
Yeah.
We don't hear any echo.
See, I've got to take a. You can sign it off. I'll catch you tomorrow. See ya.
He's got an emergency patient apparently. Okay, so great, but Dr. Miguel, you've been awful quiet there and looking very intent. I'm sure you got a couple of questions for Jed.
Oh, I suck. My personality sucks. I hate myself. I do, because I've never met Jed, and I'm about to disagree, and it sucks because my wife will shut the fuck up right now. She's like, shut up. She's just, you don't have to give opinions for everything.
No,
you have to, you have to give.
No, okay. So we'd love to have your opinion. Okay, and we'll say what you disagree.
So this is where I'm gonna come from on the million last, because it's too expensive and the ROI is not there. I can tell you what happened to my clinic, and I can tell you what happened to several clinics that I recommended to buy as a million and not a scanner, or just a scanner. I believe that going from not having a scanner to having a scanner barely changes anything that you do in your practice. And I believe, and I'll share some numbers with you, that what really changes your practice and your life as a dentist is having a million unit. We can argue that a printer will replace the million in the future or in the present, but anyways, the capability to finish your restoration right now. So it does several things. The first one is, I'm going to finish that restoration today. So instead of having 10 patients a day, 5 of them with an impression that somebody needs to package it and send it to the lab, and I have to temporize, and then that patient has to come back, and my team has to follow up with the lab if the case is back. And if the case is back, the case has to sit, and if it doesn't sit or an open contact, has to go back. And the patient broke the temporary or swallowed the temporary, and will call you to make a new temporary. All that is money. Okay? So number one, ROI, the fact that I get to see 5 patients instead of 10, the restoration is done today. I collect today. So I have half the billing department now trying to collect from people, sending checks, emails, like pay me, pay me, pay me. That's one aspect of it. I don't have to worry that my restoration ever is not going to fit. If I have an over margin or whatever, 11 minutes, I mill another one. So it reduces a lot of stress. There's another hidden component to the monetary of how expensive the milling is. And I have this plot in my clinic. Before I bought the milling, I'm a periodontist, but I do a little bit of everything. I do fillings and everything. I was doing 60% direct, 30% indirect, and the other 10% is like weird stuff. Whenever I bought the milling, that completely flipped. Now I'm doing 60% indirect, and I'm doing like 30% direct, and the money difference on that is humongous. Why? Because now, what it was going to be a large MOD, I'm milling that. That's what we're doing right now. But usually you don't send that to the lab. That's little weird shaped stuff. You do a filling on it. So you do $300 versus whatever you charge for an indirect. What it does to the amount of appointments that you need to confirm, the amount of patients that come in and out of the practice, your peace of mind, revenue goes up. Life gets better when you have a milling unit or a printer that can finish a restoration the same day. It's just like you're less tired, your clinic runs better, patients love it better. You are booked for one indirect restoration or direct restoration. One direct restoration. If you think that the hole became bigger, you should stop, snap a regular picture, show it to the patient. You said you need an indirect restoration. And in my clinic, most of the time what they ask is, can you do it today? I'm like, yeah, same amount of time. I just scan a mill or finish it up. And that triples the production. So just thinking that you're not paying for a lab and you have to make the ROI or not paying for the lab is the wrong way of looking about it. Your entire clinic flows changes for the positive, and just changing direct to indirect and changing the amount of patients that come and the temporaries that you don't make and everything that I spoke, revenue skyrockets. And with that 7 to 10 year loan that you pay $2,000 a month, is completely payable. So I want you guys to think about how it makes the life of the patient easier. The scanner alone doesn't remove the lab and the back and forth and the double appointment and the extra stuff. The milling changes the game. And you don't have to know how to finish restoration. You can teach your team and they finish it for you on the side. So that's my point on that. Kind of like different way of seeing it. These are the numbers of my practice. My wife, who is a music major, but wife of honors of practice, runs the practice, right? She can tell you that the $1 million was the best investment we did, to the point that I have 3 of them within 2 years.
So Jed, you're going to say something? I have to say something.
Yeah. No. And I really appreciate you, Dr. Ortiz. I really appreciate you, because that's a super valid point. I think what you're most likely experiencing is it's not the normal. And you can see that by how many offices are still buying mills. But you're also a very educated and trained dentist. You're not just a prosthodontist, you're also a technician, right? So you know how to do these. So when I look at it, what's the barrier to entry? Not just financial, but education, right? Dentists coming out of school right now, they're just thrown to the wild. They don't even teach technology in schools anymore. And so what's easier to learn? Dental technology or scanning? Scanning's easier. What's next? Design. That's where you get into printers. You need to know that before you start milling. And then you get into the mills, and then you need to know how to mill. So it's about how much is the dentist going to need to learn, and what is he going to need to be able to absorb and actually bring in. So you did a lot of your education up front, so it was much easier to bring in. I totally understand that. Do you know how much it costs to mill a restoration?
What do you want me to put into it? The cost of the milling and the block, or what do you mean?
Well, a lot of doctors don't understand that the cost of the milling the restoration is actually a lot higher than they would estimate. And the reason being is that the burrs. So you're only going to get at best about 15 blocks out of a set of burrs that you have. Then when you factor that in, you're going to average, if you're getting your burrs at cost, you're really going to average about $100 for every 6 units you do just in burrs. And a lot of doctors don't equate this in. And so you factor that in.
But the math still works out to the positive, because when you deliver the same day, you cut one appointment. And one way of looking at ROI is chair utilization. So when you run your chair utilization, you can know how much a chair costs you per hour. And when you know how much a chair costs you per hour, when you cut your appointments in half, you're making a lot of money. But the hidden gem of what I said before is your direct to indirect will completely flip, to the point that your revenue goes higher, not just because you're paying or not paying for the lab, but because if before you were doing a year 100 crowns and 300 fillings, next year with the milling, you're doing 180 crowns and 120 fillings. And that's the difference that makes the revenue go up. How much indirect you start doing, because you were doing too many fillings that were supposed to be indirect. And now you can do them, and then you can show the patient. And your revenue goes up beyond the exchange of how much it costs you to mill versus the lab. On the billing, on the appointment confirmation, on the amount of headache of if the case is back or not. It is amazing how it changes the life experience. So if we get a young dentist and we say go stepwise, you're going to ask him to, the first few years, get really good at analog impressions. And then the next few years, get really good at digital. And then the next few years, I say, no, get really good at the whole thing at the beginning. Just get really good at the whole thing at the beginning. And don't be worried about how much it costs, because it's going to bring more revenue. I can guarantee you that. So the barrier of price becomes just a fear more than a reality.
Well, let me give, and that's a great perspective, and you're right. I mean, as you apply it, and with your skill set and understanding, okay, you're doing it at the level that we like to see it taught, like to see it done. All right, now you've been lecturing a lot. I appreciate that, but I've 40 years. I travel the world daily. It seems like, okay, and I'm in so many offices I've seen that have bought Lyceric machines or similar types of machine. I can tell you that probably less than 2% use it how you use it, okay? That have developed your skill set. So yes, if we take that group of people that are willing to really put the time in and train, then I agree with you 1,000,000%. If you're in that mindset and you're willing to put the time in and train like you've trained, because the other side of that coin is, I mean, I've seen so much stuff that didn't fit well, that didn't look like a tube. The biologically contours were so poor. CEREC machines collecting dust as coat racks. And that's not the CEREC machine's problem or similar, but it's the lack of training or the lack of commitment that you put in. So we're just being real clear on that. Now, to enter the space where I would say, I agree that I wouldn't want to learn analog for 4 or 5 years in digital. I would start right away with a digital impression, okay? I would not even, I'd throw physical impressions out of dental school today, to tell you the truth, okay? Get people going there. God, you could buy a used Medit for $3,000, okay? Just get them started. And then when they start adapt that, maybe it's a month, maybe it's a week, maybe it's 2 years, and they're willing to make that time commitment to really do a good job on the CEREC, like you do, okay? And you've made a major time commitment to learn that. Now that you've made the time commitment, it's paying off well, okay? For many reasons, okay? But so few are willing to do that to start that they need a digital partner. And I would say there's another way to do a one-appointment dentistry in the beginning. Is you have a digital partner that's close, you scan, you send it to them, they machine, they fin it to a printed model, and they deliver it 2 or 3 or 4 hours later. I think that's a very possible thing, okay? So I think we're in agreement. Done correctly, it's phenomenal. The problem is getting people to do it correctly. And in the beginning, absolutely you need a digital partner. And then a bigger case, okay? You got a 6-unit case. God, I've seen so many posts. I have not seen a dentist post a 6-unit or bigger case, except you. Give you credit for doing it, okay? Because you're a technician too. But a dentist post a 6-unit case that I would have passed in my dental students. I wouldn't have passed it with my dental students, okay? For lots of reasons. It's just too complicated, or the lack of energy to put in, okay? So this is why we're speaking about a digital partner to do. But I think we're all on the same page.
I agree with the digital partner. I on my side, it's Patterson, and every time I pick up the phone, you better come and figure out why this thing is not working. And I agree with that.
Yeah,
on the digital partner, 100%.
Okay. Well, Jed, okay, coming back to some fun things I like to ask. So, what do you do? I know you're like into racing and cars and stuff like this, other than dentistry. A little insight in what drives you today?
Today it's work. It's work. I mean, you can see I'm pretty pale because it's snowing outside, and right now I got both my boys in baseball, and we're coaching them. So we pretty much, we have a game Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night. We have games almost every night. And so I came right from a snowstorm out in the game. And so I'm a little frosty right now. But so right now, kids, family, baseball is everything. But I've been really fortunate to kind of live almost like a few different lives. I've had a good life where we would race dirt bikes, and I still love to do that if we get out. And it's not the motocross stuff. It's more either the desert, or they call it enduro. So if you look up World Enduro Championship, it's more of a European circuit, and it's a lot more technical, and there's lots of nuances to it. So of course, I gravitate.
Is that like the Paris Dakar?
No. That's endurance. So the World Enduro is going to be a lot more through the woods, trees. You'll have sections like Dakar. Desert racing is like Dakar, which is really cool too, but that's kind of a different animal altogether. It's a lot more about guts and who's willing to risk just holding it wide open, even though you don't know what's in front of you. Whereas the World Enduro Championships are a lot more about technique and technical ability and finesse and things like that. So that's definitely something that's fun. But then before that, we actually used to build rock crawlers, which are what you take down to Moab and rock and roll over the rocks and stuff. So we build them from scratch with little dune buggies. We would start with roll cages, and we figured out a lot about suspension and tuning and all kinds of stuff. So tinkering's always kind of been in my background. And the other thing I love was golf. I still love golf, and I'm still fairly good at it. It used to be something that looked like it was going to be a career path for me, but I got to have back surgery when I was young.
Oh, wow.
So about 17, I had pretty serious back surgery, and that pretty much took any college offers off the table. But luckily right now, I golf, and usually I get called in to kind of be in for scrambles or some type of a ringer type situation. And I dust the old clubs off and go out there and hit them. So yeah, I got lots of hobbies. I wish I got to do them more. You're an inspiration to me, Ed. You get to go do a lot of hobbies and travel the world. So hopefully I'll get there one day, and we'll get to do that.
Well, I'm not as rich as Dr. Ortiz, who's treating a lot of patients all the time.
Jed, maybe you can help me with this. I think we touched about this a few chapters ago with Ed, or maybe I should talk to him about it. I noticed that I have the CEREC, right? So when I stay within my system and I send it to the mail, the results are great. The fitting is great, blah, blah, blah. When I export to the STL and then I send it to a lab, what they open in Exocad or whatever app they're using doesn't seem to have the same resolution that I'm seeing on the screen. All of a sudden, the margins that are super clear on my screen, they're not as clear on the STL that they have. My theory is that the scanners are amazing, but compression of files is not. From whatever native scanning information they have to the STL or the PLY or whatever your people are exporting from the scanners. So what do you know about this? What do you know about how the compression is made at the software side when you go to an STL file from a scanner? And are we now doing what we did with MP3 music, that we had music that used to sound amazing and then MP3 came along and chopped all the wavelengths and compressed it all up, and we lose quality on the exporting side? Am I on to something here, or am I crazy?
You know what? You're 100% correct. You are onto something, but on the same time, you're not. So yes and no. What you are seeing with your CEREC system, that is exactly what is happening. They are compressing and degrading the file. And their motives behind that, it's pretty hard not to think that they're doing it to make sure that you have a little bit of a worse experience reaching out to the lab versus staying in network, so to speak. Because you use that with any other system, you don't have that.
So that's not happening with like 3Shape or whatever.
It's a default function of the CEREC system of Densplice, so to speak. So as soon as you go anything outside of network, they actually degrade the file and make it worse on purpose.
Okay,
so it's just that.
Those devious bastards.
And it's hard. I mean, they've kind of had a little bit of a history where it seems like they've hated technicians, and they're welcome to come after me for that. But they know their history. I mean, they used to market that when CEREC came out, right? They used to tell everyone you wouldn't have technicians, and this was 20 years ago. But we all still have jobs, right? And it comes back to, really, it's not a matter of who's doing the work, is you need a team, right? You need a team. And that's what a lot of people are missing. A lot of people are getting sold a bunch of equipment, and they're essentially being told, hey, get TurboTax and fire your accountant.
Yeah.
And that's not what you need. When you're successful, you need a team. When you're slow, sure, do everything, but you need a team. But that is an unfortunate factor of the CEREC system. And it does limit things, unfortunately. And there is a pretty good price point to jump into the Densplice system if you are a laboratory. So it's a big commitment one way or the other.
Okay, well, we got the answer to that. So Digital MacGyver, sir, Prime Professor, fill us in on what you're doing in the resin space. I know I talked about it in the introduction. But again, anybody, if you don't like the resins you're working with, or you're new to this printing space, reach out to Jed. Jed, share with us how they can find you, reach out, and what we can add QR code or your or any information you want in the show notes. But update us on where we're at.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Ed. This is something that we've been passionate about and trying to pursue for a long time, right? Is where can we find better stone-like resin? Where can we find better, high-resolution, accurate printers out there? Unfortunately, when we look inside of dentistry, all the printers that we use inside dentistry really are functioning anywhere from a 50 resolution all the way up to a 95 resolution. and that's the standard. And that's just not going to cut it. That's fine for removables, but we know for fixed, we really need to have a target under 50 if we want to achieve 50 in the end. So that's where we've had to actually go to our hobby printers, or they call them the popcorn printers, so to speak, right? Because they have the little popcorn hood that you take off. I call them hobby. And the thing is the guts inside and the hardware inside is actually fantastic. And it's actually better than a lot of our dental printers. And when I try to explain to people how and why this is happening, I explain it much like cars. Right? I'm a car guy. But if you look at your production car, right, the motor isn't exactly a race car motor, but it's gone through millions of dollars of engineering. It's got safety features. It's got all these little sensors and wires, and, you got seat belts. You got, an FM player, whatever. But you have all these features. That is a production car. And it's a package deal. That is very similar to what we're getting with our dental printers, right? They're a production unit. Now you go to the hobby popcorn units and you got great guts, but you got nothing else. You got no seat belts, you got no roof, you got no doors, you got nothing, but you got great guts. And so with our popcorn units out there, we are getting down to essentially 19 resolution right now, and some of them are pushing it even farther. And so that's where we're starting to see a huge advantage, which is really cool. And it's something that does allow us to actually push the boundaries with resin quite a bit more. Can I share some images or try to?
Yeah, and please update us, because I know that you've been working with Frozen a little bit, consulting with them, and they're coming out with a printer in the dental space that gives that kind of resolution, but has the seat belts and has the hood, things like that.
So you can see here with this resin, so essentially this is our resin on the right, and this is your premium dental resin on the left. This is actually from our one of our good partners, Doc, on the left. This is resin that we've loved, that was really the best resin we could find in the dental industry. And this is very harsh lighting. Again, photography I learned from Doc, which is fantastic. If you want to take any photography courses, he's got the best. So you can see with the dental resin that it's very shiny, very glossy, almost looks like a McDonald's toy. Versus on the right, we're taking advantage of the resolution of the printer, and we're getting a stone-like surface, which is really, really cool. The other example I love is Indy here. So this is cool, because this is a little more of a shiny model. It has shiny surfaces, but also has stubble. So you can see with Indy's hat, you can see that we can actually capture the leather hat. Yeah, not see any of those false printer lines.
But so that's a combination of better printer and the resin you develop.
Yes. So the problem we've had is not only is the dental industry kind of locked into these production printers, which they have to run with for 5 to 6 years before they come out with a new one, is the fact is that they haven't really had the need to push for better model resin because they haven't had printers that can even utilize it. So it hasn't really been like a dire need, other than for people like Ed and I saying, no, we really need this. So this is something that's really cool. You can see here with Indy, you can see the stubble on his face, right? You can see his scar, you can see it smooth. And this is what we can get to. And the really cool thing I have for you, Doc. So here's our sorbet resin, which we use for course models. And I'm just going to flip through here because this is... All right. So this is what we can achieve. So if you look at this image, this is actually scanned image. So we've scanned in high resolution your wax up, Doc. So this is your wax up of Fernando. And you can see that the prints of these dies, when we made our removable dies for it, it actually looks really close to your wax up. Right? It almost looks like wax.
Yeah, you can see the surface there.
Right. So it's not like I'm giving it a false matte surface. We're actually shiny where it needs to be shiny, and we're smooth where it needs to be smooth. We got grooves where we got it. And you can see the base here. The base was printed on our standard 50 resolution, 50 layer height. So you can see that's your standard printing texture that we're used to seeing. This is high resolution printing.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's exciting to me, buddy.
Yeah, me too. And this is where we can be like, okay, we can use this where we need it, right? You don't need to have this all the time, obviously.
Can you tell me about the resin? I know there's things that you can tell me and things that you cannot tell me, but
no, he's selling it now.
what?
Yeah,
You can buy it.
yeah, like Ed said, so essentially we tried to have this made with about every manufacturer we could talk to and listen to. We only had one who took the bite for it, but they kept failing, unfortunately, and actually being able to deliver a product that we would use. So it came to a point where I was able to source raw resin. There's lots of resin manufacturers out there, and I'm able to add essentially other additives and color to give us properties that we need. So that part of it is pretty cool. So it's essentially, I'm kind of like a chef going to the farmer's market, buying groceries, and then making you a fantastic dish. That's essentially.
What are the properties that you were looking for? Like when you were putting these ingredients in it, what were you looking for?
Well, we're good. What I want to give you guys essentially is something that has a stone-like finish, right? It's going to give us a stone-like finish so we can actually see texture. Print that can actually give us a really high resolution. There's a lot of resins out there that just won't really accept or do anything better when you introduce high resolution to it.
Has that to do with viscosity or what is it?
It just has to do with some of the properties inside. Sometimes it's just some of the additives they have. They want to add a little translucency to the resin so it prints a little faster. And sometimes it will be the viscosity as well. So, but usually it has to do with they're adding a little bit of translucency, usually about 20 to 30% translucent resin, which really is just devastating for our optics, but it also does hurt when it comes to getting good resolution out of our prints.
Can you go back to your first?
Well, Doctor, go back to the last for just a second. I want to point out something to Dr. Ortiz to the audience.
So again, you can see here, this is where you get that glossy surface. So even if I use this resin on a high resolution printer, it still comes out with this glossy surface, and then a lot of the details start to kind of melt.
Is that the translucency that you're talking about?
Yes.
Is that what gives the glossy?
Yes.
But if we look this under the microscope and if you print with both resin with a high resolution printer, not to the eye, but to reality, with both of them, will we get high resolution printing or not?
No.
So the bad resin kind of like loses resolution, even though the printer is high resolution.
Yes, 100%. I mean, you got to think that compared to light curing composites, right? You're dealing with a fixed shape when you're light curing a composite to a tooth. But when we're talking about light curing a bath of resin, it really is determined by optics. And so the only thing that's going to stop that light is the opacity of the material, right? Versus any little light that's shining into that vat, it's going to essentially kind of bleed.
Oh, so too much is curing when it's translucent.
It's creating almost like a fuzzy edge, like a bleeding surface. So you have the image that's going into the vat, but there's a bleeding of that light wherever that sharp edge is. There's a bleeding of that light, so it actually kind of blends and melts and kind of gets a little fuzzy.
Interesting, I see it.
Like softening your wax with a little torch.
Exactly.
Or with my grandma's panties.
Now, the other thing that to really mention is, and one of the things that when Jed was asking my opinions on this, I said, I really would love to see something that's not fake reflective. And look at that surface. It looks like the surface of a real tooth if you dry it. Okay?
Yeah, if you dry it, but at the same time, it looks like wax, but it's shiny where it needs to be shiny, right? Because that's one of the things that's interesting about our stone models is everything is matte. And it doesn't really give us that variance of luster that we would see with natural teeth. So this is where we actually maybe can see some improvements over our stone models because we can actually get variance of surface when we start talking about this high resolution stuff. So a lot of the other things that we've added, which are just bonuses to it, really are bonuses to the user, which are going to be it's very easy to print, meaning it sticks to the bed really well, no matter what printer people are using. So as you go from different brand to brand, it's very easy to transfer over and get people using it. The other thing that's really nice is you don't have to mix it as much or as well as some of your other resins. A lot of other resins, they separate extremely fast, and the pigments will separate, the opacity will separate from the trans, and it gets kind of weird. And so you have to have these rollers and these really kind of rigorous exercises of trying to make sure your resin is mixed, right? So you think of a clinic that's printing maybe once or twice a week, or maybe even just once a day. If their assistant, who's a new assistant, right? If their assistant doesn't mix that resin in the vat very thoroughly, that print's not going to come out how it's intended. If we're talking about class 2 materials, it's definitely not going to be the FDA approved class 2 material they test. It's going to be a different material altogether. So mixing is very important. That's one of the things that's great about this, is it's very friendly to mixing. You mix it once and it stays mixed for quite a few days, and it will just avoid any type of distortion. It'll avoid any type of misprints and things like that. So it makes it very easy, just because a lot of people doing the printing are still getting their feet on it, right? This is still kind of new technology to them.
Well, Jed, so this is just amazing, and that's why I wanted to have you on, and it's been such a pleasure, and because I know we're getting a little long here, and I promised to get you out by now, so that's great. Please tell us, do you have a slide that people could look at right now that shows how people could contact you? Because this is on the market, ladies and gentlemen, and I would strongly recommend, especially if if some of those issues you have with resins that we all three have here, please look into this. Okay, there we go.
Yeah, I mean, right now, feel free to reach out to me. A lot of people can find me on Facebook, or they can email us at archibalddigital@gmail.com, and we'll get them set up with an account. This is essentially how we're selling it. If you're in the lab and you're going through models, I mean, you're going through quite a bit of resin. So having these 1 liter bottles, you end up filling up dumpsters with 1 liter bottles, and you feel like you're killing the planet. And so we like selling these larger jugs here, which are great. And they really help. And hopefully Armando has my QR code he can throw up there as well and get a hold of me that way. But
yeah, Armando will throw up a slide with his QR code when we publish this. And to tell the audience out there, the white sand is the first one that he's finished on the market. He's coming out with 2 other shades for sure, kind of a cool black, and then kind of an A2-ish color, as I remember. Is that correct, Jed?
Yeah, we're still working on that. I'm still trying to see what the market really wants out of this. And but yeah, so right now we have the white sand, which is the crowd pleaser. That's for everybody. And then we have the sorbet base, which, sorry, I'm going to flip back through. Yeah, sorbet base is really cool, as we actually got into doing a lot of our course models and printing. With printing and resin, we can actually make a very realistic tissue color.
Right.
And the problem I found with that is you ended up looking like you had a bench full of cadaver mouths. And it kind of grossed me out. And then I noticed patients were saying the same thing. It kind of grossed them out too. So I'm like, maybe real isn't the way to go. Yeah. And so that's where we kind of came up with this sorbet
guy. Yeah, it's cool.
Which is nice, right? It gives you the aesthetic you need, but also it doesn't gross patients out.
No, it's cool. I like it. Yeah. That was absolutely awesome. I mean, absolutely awesome. I'm been on. Like I said, I'm so grateful of the collaboration, and I know Dr. Ortiz will be sending you a case Monday, and buying the resin on Tuesday, and hopefully we can.
The problem is that my STL that you get is a little bit degraded, so
yeah. Well,
it's going to be a lot degraded.
Yeah. Okay. Well, but you can still obviously use the resin or consult, and then. So Jed, when is that print? Last question I would ask, and then we'll summarize. Let everybody go here. When is that printer going to be out that you were working with a company called Frozen, and I think another company too, that'll be easy for a dental person to use, where they don't have to MacGyver it. In other words.
Yeah. Yes. So we talked about working. We never really got fully involved in working with them, so I'm not going to take credit for anything. But Frozen is a great company because they have been really powerhouse players in the hobby world, right?
Yeah.
And their hardware is fantastic. What they have done is they have a whole line of professional printers, which are the same guts and the same hardware as their hobby line, but they have the FDA clearance. They have a nice hood. They've gone through that production process. So they're a little more money, but compared to dental, it's ridiculous. So even their nicest professional unit is still about $3,000.
And now, can you easily use the Shara model in that system with it? Is that an easy thing to use? You just send the file to it to print?
Yes, the software. Yes,
the software. I mean, yeah, it's called Shara Easy Model from Shara, right?
Yes, and that's one of the things that most people are freaked out about when they actually look at the hobby world. They're freaked out about 2 things. One is actually how good the quality is of the technology, and 2, how many things you get that are free that would cost an absolute fortune in dentistry. So you talk about even just the slicing software that goes with any of the hobby printers. It's actually free.
Yeah.
And it works better than most dental companies out there, out of the box. So Frozen's a great company to look at. There's a lot of other companies that are doing a fantastic job too. It's just a matter of will you be able to continue to get parts, because you're essentially getting a new printer about every 6 months.
Right. Okay.
It's how fast.
But a professional level printer for $3,000 versus 15 to 20. And again, if you use existing software that you can buy, the Share Easy model, which I know Jed recommends, that seems to me to be a great solution, buddy. And you saw those prints. I mean, audience, you saw that print. Yes, great resin, but also to a high quality printer.
Yeah, and full disclosure, so those prints were done actually on the Anycubic, which is kind of the competitor to Frozen, but that was done on their 14K resolution printer. So in the Frozen professional line, they're going to be kind of limited to the 8K resolution, which is still fantastic. We're still talking 20 to 35 resolution. And so we're playing with a lot of these other companies who are kind of pushing that boundaries, getting closer to the 12 or 14K resolution, just because it's fun.
Okay, so so Frozen, PHRZOZEN. Okay, and then what was the name of the other printer company you would tell people to look at?
Anycubic, so ANYCUBIC. There are other fantastic companies out there, but the nice thing about Anycubic is they're a huge player, and you can get almost everything for them on Amazon.
Wow.
That's huge.
And they had a 14K printer.
They do. They don't have as many. Not all their models are hits. I would say all of Frozen's models are hits, and they have a ton of models. Anycubic, I've seen quite a few misses. So there's two printers I would look at. So there's the 6KS, which is a 6K resolution. That's about 33 That is an absolute powerhouse. It's really hard to break that thing. The other one I would look at is the M5. So that is a 12K resolution. They have an M5S. Don't mess with it. They have an M5 Pro. I do not recommend it. They're not as good.
Okay.
So there's kind of tricky and nuancy that way. So if they want to try an affordable printer that has insane resolution, look at the M5, and that will pretty much freak most people out.
And that's a great place to finish. And I'll just add a couple things. As we've heard a lot about this, you can see there's an amazing amount of options. Jed, AKA Digital MacGyver, he teaches courses in this, and he also consults, audience, please. And so if you want to reach out to Jed, he'd be happy to help you set up. Obviously, he has to charge you for their time, but there's an old interesting saying that says, listen, stupid people learn from their mistakes. Smart people learn from the mistakes of others, okay? And boy, it took me a long time to be a little bit less stupid, okay? When I ran into Jed and friends like Miguel, that I learn from these people constantly, and I take advantage of any chance I get to go take their course. So please reach out to Jed, reach out to Miguel. Miguel teaches some phenomenal courses in minimalistic dentistry. I know he's also doing a bunch of stuff with CERAC, photography, practice management, things like that. He's based on the East Coast. Certainly look into that. Jed's out here in the wild, wild west with me. So last closing comments, anybody? Thank you, Jed, for being here. Miguel, you got a closing comment or two?
I just wanted to say thank you, Jed. I felt like I learned a lot today. How to think about what in the resin and the printing. I'm going to look into your resin. And yeah, thank you for joining us today.
All right.
I'm a better man after this.
Jed, a final comment, buddy?
Yeah, no, thank you as well. I know this is something we've been wanting to do a long time, Doc, and we're going to continue to push the limits and hopefully inspire people more than we freak them out. That's always the goal, right?
Yeah.
But at the very least, they can let my pain be their gain, right? So let's definitely keep it going and keep at it.
And please do. I mean, like both of these guys on the screen, and Jed from the digital space. I mean, I've never met anybody, to be redundant, with the depth of knowledge, the depth of experience, and please take advantage of that, audience out there. All right, thanks everybody for watching. This is our third episode. We'll see you next month with something new. Take care, everybody. Goodbye.
See ya.